As the gentleman from California, Mr. McClintock, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, Mr. Moore, you keep bashing California's socialist economy, but I need to remind you that despite its problems, California is still one of the best places in the country to build a successful small business. All you have to do is start with a successful large business. Mr. Chairman, there are times when I wonder if the majority is completely disconnected from reality. The American Rescue Plan that spent and printed nearly $2 trillion that we didn't have, that amounts to about $15,000 for every family in America, unleashed a wicked inflation that's now robbing families of thousands of dollars of their earnings. It turns out that all that free money that you sent out is pretty expensive. And Americans are paying it back every day at the grocery store, the gas station, the rents they pay everywhere. Government can't put a dollar into the economy without first taking that same dollar out of the economy. Whenever government gives you a dollar, it has to take a dollar from you. It does so through current taxes, which rob you of your current earning power and suppresses productivity. It does so through your future taxes by borrowing, which robs you of your future earnings. And it does so through inflation, which ravages your savings and purchasing power. ARPA was financed through inflation, and it is crushing working families. And at the same time, you keep flooding the labor market with cheap illegal labor, assuring working Americans will never recover. And the sad irony is they trusted you. Even your own economists warned you this would happen, Steve Ratner and Larry Summers, among others. And yet you listened to the socialists in your party instead. And this is what we've got. Before you passed ARPA, the CBO projected 2% inflation for 2022. We're now at 8.6% and accelerating. It projected zero interest rate increases until 2024. We've had 1.25 so far, as much as 2 when the dust settles at the Fed, and mortgage rates have doubled. CBO projected 4.6% economic growth for 2021, 3% for 2022. Instead, we've had a 1.5% economic shrinkage in the first quarter. And you have the gall to tell us that ARPA is doing great things for the economy and everybody's wonderful. Are you out of your minds? I keep trying to warn you, you cannot spin the economy. Everybody knows precisely how they're doing. And when you try to tell them otherwise, you sound foolish. And when you keep trying, you sound delusional. You're not fooling anybody but yourselves. Now, Mr. Moore, we just heard about poverty. Didn't we reach the lowest poverty rate in 60 years under the Trump administration?
Recorded history of the United States.
How did communities of color fare in the Trump economy?
So we had the lowest Hispanic, Asian, and Black poverty rate ever recorded in the history of the United States.
How about wage growth?
Pardon me?
How about wage growth?
Very strong. I mean, we had, according to the Census Bureau data does kind of the critical research on this, and they found over the 4 years of Trump administration roughly $6,000 after inflation real income gain for the median income.
And
that's the people just in the middle.
That was the fastest wage growth in 40 years, was it not?
Roughly, yep.
And
wage growth was pretty good
in the principal beneficiaries, working class Americans, wasn't the income gap between rich and poor finally beginning to shrink?
So this is really the most important point. I think we'd all agree on this panel that one way that you should assess a government policy is how it affects the least among us. And I think I agree with that. How does it affect minorities? How does it affect the lowest income people? So if we accept that criteria, we saw big gains for low income people under Trump. And here's the thing the reason I said inflation is the cruel.
What are we seeing now, and how are communities of color doing now?
Well, see, this is the thing. When I said inflation is the cruelest tax, it is the most regressive tax of all. Look, if you have 8% inflation, I guarantee you Bill Gates doesn't care. I guarantee you someone who's making more than $1 million doesn't care. But people are making $50,000, they get crushed.
If they're making $50,000, doesn't an 8.6% inflation rate mean they've just lost $4,300 of purchasing power?
Well, wages are up by 5. So
yeah, but if at $50,000, an 8.6% inflation rate means reduced wages of purchasing power for $4,300, is it not? If I set aside $100,000 toward my retirement, doesn't that mean that the Democrats' inflation just took $8,600 of purchasing power?
Well, except the wages are up by 5%. But you know what's really down, sir, is savings. I don't understand why Joe Biden keeps saying savings is up. We've seen $11 trillion lost in the stock market in the last 4 months. Where do people have their savings? So this is the biggest evaporation of savings
But
since
if you've got $100,000 in your savings account that you put towards your retirement, isn't it worth now $8,600 less this year because of the Democrats' inflation?
Yes.
Thank you.